welcome to this artist talk with David Lynch live from his studio in Los Angeles. I'm Sarah Perks. I'm co-curator of My Head is Disconnected. I co-curated the exhibition with Omar Khalif, and David's exhibition is here at home in Manchester. It's part of Manchester International Festival. And I'm an independent curator and a professor of visual art at Manchester School of Art. David Lynch is an artist. I would say he's one of the greatest and most respected in the whole world. He works across multiple media: painting, printing, drawing, sculpture, photography, sound and music, film, and beyond. It's likely you've seen a film or two, I'm guessing. And recently he made an 18-hour film called Twin Peaks: The Return, which, in my humble opinion, is a masterpiece. A true auteur, at the heart of his creations is an ability to merge the mundane and the sinister, leading to the word Lynchian entering the Oxford Dictionary last year. Now, Manchester has a very special curated exhibition of his fine art here for 3 months, and a super lineup of events over this special international festival period. In 2005, David set up the David Lynch Foundation to enable at-risk groups and young people to learn transcendental meditation. Proceeds from this event will be used to teach staff and users of LifeShare here in Manchester, which is a fantastic place that tackles this city's homeless problem. Okay, so David Lynch, are you there?
I am here, Sarah.
Hiya, David.
Hey, Sarah, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, thank you. Good afternoon, and how are you?
I'm very good. Before we get started, the word is out, Sarah, that you have done an excellent job putting this show together, and I want to publicly thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David. Have you got your coffee there?
I got the coffee here.
Yay! So I want to say a thank you in return. Just thank you so much for sharing your work with us here in Manchester. And it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you, a real honor, so thank you. And everyone here in the audience has been to your exhibition already today. So I'd like them to do just another sonic appreciation of whatever method they want, just to show that they've seen the exhibition and they've enjoyed it. So please make some noise.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
So I've invited some of the audience here on stage with me to ask some questions, and some of my collaborators and co-curators who made all of this possible. So they're going to come and stand here and ask you some questions so that you can see them. But I'll start off a few first just to get things going. And actually, there is still a Twitter hashtag out there, hashtag #AskDavidLynch. So actually, it's not too late for people to still tweet in. It might reach me. And if you do tweet in, please make sure it's a good question. So, David, could you tell us about the moment when you decided to become an artist?
I told this story many times before. I always liked to draw and paint when I was little. I liked to draw guns and airplanes. And my favorite thing to draw was the Browning automatic water-cooled submachine gun. Though I was naive and thought that adults really couldn't be drawing. And when I was in the 9th grade, I was in the front yard of my girlfriend's house, and I was meeting a fellow who didn't go to my school, went to a private school, and I was talking to him, meeting him for the first time, and somewhere along the line, he mentioned that his father was a painter. And at first I thought he was a house painter. And then he said, no, he's a fine art painter. And a bomb went off in my head. And from that millisecond onward, I only wanted to be a painter.
And what did you learn, if anything, when you went to art school?
I learned that it's, of course, important to have good teachers, but what's the most important thing to me is to have good fellow students who inspire each other and keep each other going. And that's what I found at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. Great fellow students, serious painters, and we inspired each other and kept each other going down the road all through the years.
And how do you decide the titles of your artwork?
Sometimes I get an idea, a title inspires the work, but a lot of times the title kind of comes out of the work. So it's can happen somewhere along the line.
And can you tell us a little bit about the lithograph process? So how do you make the amazing lithographs?
Well, lithography is a fantastic old medium, and in 2007, I had a show at the Foundation Cartier, and the director of that, Hervé Chandez, said to me one day, David, I'd like to take you over and show you a special place. And he took me several blocks away to Edam Printing Studio. I walked into that studio and started smelling the printer ink and seeing the fantastic machines, the presses, and thought I had drifted into heaven. Patrice Forrest, who runs the place, said, how would you like to make a lithograph? And I said, do birds fly? And I started making lithographs, and now through the years I've made over, I think, 250, 270 lithos at this place, Edam. It's a fantastic process. You can work on zinc plates, you can work on stones, you can work on mylar, but the results are unlike any other medium. It's really very beautiful, beautiful medium.
Fabulous. One of my other favorite pieces in the show is the matchbook series. Can you tell me a little bit about how, when and how did you make the matchbooks?
I made those matchbook drawings in what we call the food room of the stables, which were down below a 55-room mansion called Greystone Estates. And I took control of the stables area, maid's quarters, hayloft, and had a mini studio. And at night, when Herb or Fred was lighting, I would sit in the food room smoking cigarettes and drawing on these empty matchbooks. And so some of them, I guess, got saved, and they are now in a show.
Super. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to start inviting some of my friends up to ask you some questions. So first, I'd like to introduce Marianne Hobbs, and she is a DJ and a BBC presenter, and she helps with the music program. So Marianne, would you like to come and ask a question?
Hello, David.
Hi, Marianne.
Just a very, very simple question tonight. Are you happy?
Marianne, fortunately, I can say most of the time I am very happy.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, Katie Popperwell. Katie's also helped with the music program. I'd like to invite you up to ask your question.
Hi, David.
Hello.
My question is a bit involved and a bit weird, but I feel like that's okay. Your work invites the viewer or the audience into a liminal space. Whether or not it's in your TV work or in your film, this other world that you represent to us, what I want to know is it always the same world? Are they different gateways into the same place, or are you showing us different places?
I'm showing you places that have come along with ideas that I happen to be fortunate enough to catch and fall in love with. So to me, there are many, many, many different worlds that come along with these ideas. So it's not just one world. It's not one world, but I think all the ideas that we catch have come from the same place where everything comes from, which they say is the unified field. And so, it conjures many different worlds.
Thank you.
You bet.
And Faisal Akirati, will you come and ask your question, please? Thank you, Faisal. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Katie.
Hi there, Mr. Lynch.
Hello.
First of all, just to say thank you, because your work had a sizable impact on me. If it wasn't for your film Dune and Blue Velvet, I would not have actually that led me to an interest in filmmaking and actually later a career in film production. So the question I have to ask is that being a big fan of your work and especially Dune, I would like to ask, if Dune had been the financial success that people were predicting early on, would your career trajectory been any different? Would you have still made those same films that you're now known for, or would you have gone off into another direction?
I have no idea. And I always say, Dune is a huge, gigantic sadness in my life, because I did not have final cut on that film. Total creative control I didn't have. So the film is not the film that I would have made had I had that final control. So it's a bit of a sadness, and but I'm still happy that you like it. And I like many, many parts of Dune myself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, it's me again. I'm just going to add in a few that are people who aren't here that came in on email or Twitter. So Lisa Pike wants to know, are you planning on releasing another album anytime soon? And if you were, who would be your dream collaborators?
I am not planning on releasing anything soon, but I did do some experiments with a great musician and composer, David Paich, from the group Toto, that I met way back on the film Dune. And that's a guy I liked working with recently a lot. I love musicians. As I always say, musicians are like kids. They like to sleep late in the morning, and they don't care, about much of anything except getting together and making music. And it's so beautiful to see what happens when musicians get together and tune into the same thing, and the magic starts happening. It's the world of music is so beautiful. I love being in that world.
Thank you. Oh, you're here. Who's Lisa?
Hi, David.
And Rita, are you Rita? Yeah, I thought you must be together because you've got the same surname. And Rita also wanted to ask, what is the weather like?
Well, here in Los Angeles, we've had unseasonably cool weather, and it's been a little bit depressing. Starts off very gloomy in the day, and sometimes the sun just never really comes out. But recently, we see signs of change, and right now we have muted sunlight, muted sunshine.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I've got a great question here from Angela Webster, who's on stage. So I'll hand over to Angela.
Hello, David.
Hello.
Just catch my breath. This is a big moment. So my question's got two parts, if that's okay. The first part is to do with nature and trees. It seems to appear in a lot of your work, whether it be artwork or Twin Peaks, and I wondered what your fascination or interest was with trees.
This is a very nice question because my father was a research scientist for the Department of Agriculture, and my father loved trees, in particular the ponderosa pine. I grew up in the northwest of the United States, and whenever I travel with my family, we never even stayed in a motel. We always pulled off the side of the road and camped out. I was always in the woods. My father was in charge of the Boise National Experimental Forest when we lived in Boise, Idaho, and I'd go into the woods. I'd take a lunch. My father would drive me deep into the woods in a Forest Service pickup truck, let me out with a .22 rifle, and I'd go off into the woods and spend the day and have my lunch. I was allowed to shoot chipmunks because the woods was overrun with chipmunks, but I was not allowed to shoot anything else. And, but anyway, I spent a lot of time in the woods.
And my second part of the question...
I'd also love the smell of a ponderosa pine forest, and I like to chew pitch gum like the log lady in Twin Peaks.
The second part of my question sort of comes from my daughter. My daughter Eloisa has chosen to study trees as part of her final art exams in high school. So what advice would you have for Eloisa if she's choosing to study her trees?
I couldn't quite understand the type of trees.
She's just studying trees in general as part of the final art exams.
I would study ponderosa pine and a Douglas fir. Douglas fir, and say the state of Washington. Close to the water, you get the Douglas firs. They like moisture. And then as you go further east, it gets drier and drier, and that's where you get the ponderosa pine. Two of the most beautiful trees in the world. She could study those trees.
I will tell her. Thank you so much, David. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and Stephen Snoddy, could you please take the podium? This is Stephen Snoddy.
Hi, David. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be here. And let me just say, it's one damn fine exhibition.
Fantastic, man. I'm glad it is.
In the making of your artwork, you're physically engaged in this process with your hands. How does this influence the way you work with film? I ask this because you're working by yourself in the art studio, but you can't make movies by yourself. So how do you navigate the difference between the solitude of the studio and the busyness of a film set?
That's a very good question. And I like to work with my hands. I like to get dirty. One of my earliest memories is squeezing mud in a mud puddle with my friend Little Dickie Smith. And I like organic phenomenon very, very much. And as it's true, when you're painting, you're all alone in the world of paint. And in film, what you have to learn is to get the whole bunch, the actors, the crew, to travel along the same road dictated by the idea. And you want everybody to be tuned in to the same thing you're tuned into. So this involves talking and listening and watching what they bring, and then if it's not right, talking some more until they start bringing the things that are dictated by the idea that you are following. And so it's a kind of common sense thing. It's a process mostly involving words and sometimes a look. But they get all together on the same road, and then you've got this thing going. And then all you do is concentrate on getting every single element to feel correct based on the idea and making sure it gets recorded on the film. All the rest is not worth anything, really. It's what goes on to the film or the card, and that's what you concentrate on.
Yeah, I should just say that I'm a museum director, so when I direct the museum, I've got all these staff to look after, all these departments, but I'm also an artist, and I think it's much easier to be in the studio than it is to run a large organisation, because the decisions that you make in the studio are yours alone. So I completely empathise with you being in charge of a film crew, making sure that the lighting, the cameraman, the sound, etc., are all working together towards the final project. So would you say it's easier for you to be in the studio than it is to be on a film set?
No.
Oh.
The decisions, the director has the final say in the studio and on the set, or in the printing room or whatever. You can't, there's no such thing as a compromise when it comes to the ideas. You got to make sure that it's correct based on the ideas that you've fallen in love with. If it's not correct, you take the time to make it correct.
Okay, thanks very much.
You bet.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, Samantha Bobrovsky. Are you here with your question?
Now I can't hear a word you're saying, Sarah, if you're talking.
Oh, don't worry. Someone else is just going to come and ask a question. This is Samantha.
Okay.
Hi, David. I'm Samantha. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Good to see you, Samantha.
Sorry, I've been told to step
Good
back.
to see you, I said.
Oh, hi, sorry. I was being told to step back, so I'm sorry about that. I was really interested to know about your collaborative and working process with your production designers. Do you have a clear idea from the start as to the look of the film or the TV series? Or is it, collaborative from the sort of get-go? How much input do you have at the very beginning?
Again, I have to have the input because I've got to translate the idea to a medium, in this case, cinema. So you have to work with every department in the same way, talk with words and describe what the idea is and what it looks like, what it sounds like, what the mood is, what the light is, what the people are, what kind of things they wear, how slow or fast or loud or soft they talk, how the music is. And it's just based on the idea. So it's very important that you get everybody, as I said, going along the same road based on the idea. And then they take their talent and soar, but we're all going down the same road.
And I understand that you production designed and art directed Eraserhead. So was that for creative reasons or budget reasons?
I would like to do everything myself, but you can't do that. So you end up working with people, but as I say, you work with them, not say, Susie, you go out and do whatever you want. Tommy, you go out and do whatever you want. No, you've got to get them to be on the same road based on the idea. That's the thing.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, and Dana Bruce, you're next.
Hello, David Lynch.
Hello.
The film world is currently going through a transitional period with female filmmakers being a talking point yet still being overlooked. As an influential filmmaker and a father of a female director, how do you think the industry should support and lift women storytellers to the same prominence as their male counterparts?
Well, I don't know why it hasn't always been the same chance for women as it is for men. I don't understand it. I don't have a problem with, if you've got a great idea, I don't care what your gender is. You know, if you're a great filmmaker, it doesn't matter. If you just want to make films, it doesn't matter. So I guess, well, I would say I could talk about raising collective consciousness through these technologies that Maharishi Mahesh Yogi brought out is going to change things for the good. And I'm sure, you know, it's going to change things very, very much for women in all walks of life.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. And Thomas. I've got here Thomas Manchester. Is that really your surname, or you just... Really? I thought it's like Thomas from Manchester.
Hello, David. This
Hello.
is an outrageous privilege, so thank you very much. I was wondering, you didn't achieve mainstream success until the age of 31 with the release of Eraserhead, which became a midnight movie sensation. Prior to that, how did you manage your financial anxieties as an artist regarding the future? Or did you not have anxieties like that in the first place?
I delivered the Wall Street Journal, and I had a paper route. I picked up my papers at 11:30 at night, and so I only worked 5 days a week, and I had my route down to 1 hour. Right. So I worked 5 hours a week. That's all I had to work, and I made $200 a month. And in those days, I was able to have every single thing that I have today. It's amazing.
Right.
Now they say salaries have stayed the same and everything else has gone way up in price. So the world's kind of gone ass backwards and people are suffering, and many people have, the mom and dad both work, and some people they have 2 or 3 different jobs. It's not a good way right now, but in those days, I didn't have enough money for a lot of things I wanted to do, but I had enough money, like I said, to have pretty much what I've got now. I just don't know how it happened.
Thank you, David. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay, Rebecca Smith. Rebecca Smith, thank you.
Hello, David.
Hello.
Hello.
No, you can step close to the mic so I can hear you.
Okay, my voice is kind of quiet. I just wanted to ask, to what extent does your meditative practice impact on your creative process, and where do the two sit with each other?
That's a very good question. And the answer is the meditative practice. I practice transcendental meditation as taught by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, has an enormous, gigantic, huge impact on my creative work and my life in general. It's common sense. The key word is transcend. You're given a technique that truly gets you to the transcendent, this field within each and every human being. This field is called pure consciousness, and this consciousness has the qualities of intelligence. Unbounded intelligence is within us. Unbounded creativity, unbounded love, unbounded happiness, unbounded energy, unbounded peace. Common sense would tell you it would be very good to experience this field within, because every time you experience it, you infuse some of that and grow in that consciousness and those all positive qualities. Money in the bank, common sense. Get this technique and boogie.
I'll be sure to try it.
Yeah, good deal.
Thank you,
Get
Rebecca.
it this afternoon, no, tomorrow morning.
that actually reminds me, David, I learnt TM. Deirdre taught me herself. Deirdre runs the David Lynch Foundation UK. So I do it now. I've learned.
This is very good news, Sarah.
Thank you. I've got a question that came in that I don't understand, but I'm hoping it makes some sense to you. So Ants Move Away sent this question. I would really like to try your quinoa, but I have allergic reactions to broccoli. Is there anything else you'd recommend as a worthy replacement?
You could try possibly some peas.
Okay. Like any kind of beans?
Peas.
Oh, peas, sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Green ones, yeah.
Green ones, yes.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to invite Ethan and Rebecca Regendra to come and ask their question. They're going to come and ask you together.
Fantastic.
Good afternoon, David.
Good afternoon, you guys.
So this is our question.
What do you think is happening in the town of Twin Peaks right at this moment?
Wow. It's a very troubling afternoon there.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Matt Rogerson, can you come and ask your question, please?
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Tremendous privilege to speak to you, especially today as it's my birthday. So thank you.
Happy birthday to
Thank
you.
you very much.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. My question is quite a morbid one, so I apologise. Shooting Catherine Coulson's final scenes, the Log Lady's final scenes in Twin Peaks: The Return, must have been very challenging, but also a real privilege as well. Could you tell me a little about that?
Well, that's a story, and I don't know. That was a very important, emotional, one-of-a-kind, never-to-be-forgotten experience. And as you know, Catherine was, very ill, and so was Margaret Lanterman. The two were going through a very similar thing. So you can imagine the scene being a kind of a reality for both women. That's kind of all I'd say right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Matt Poynton. Matt, could you come and ask your question, please?
He must be a long way away. Okay.
Hi, David.
Hello.
First, I just want to say that I've recently introduced my wife to all seasons of Twin Peaks, and she's fallen a little bit in love with you, so she says hi. I don't know why I'm looking up there, because you're there. My question is, of all the projects that were never made, like Ronnie Rocket and One Saliva Bubble, which would you, if you given the opportunity, would you like to make? And would you ever publish your screenplays independently, the unmade ones?
I don't know which one. I've always been in love with Ronnie Rocket. I wanted to make this film. The only reason I haven't, I still feel there's more work to be done on the script, but I love the world of Ronnie Rocket, and so I suppose that's the world I would like to go into.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, on a similar vein, Otis and Isaac Jordan would like to ask you whether you would ever make a second series of the animations Dumbland.
Dumbland right now is eight episodes, and I was working on the 9th, but it's not finished. So I would like to finish the 9th episode someday.
Great, thank you. Paul Walsh, who might be here. Woo, you're there. Is from Scranton, Pennsylvania. Is that true? Yes. Yeah? Do you know where that is, David?
Yes, I do.
Good. So he would like to ask you, you lived in Philadelphia for some time, and I've read how you thought the fear, insanity, corruption, filth, despair, violence in the air was so beautiful it gave you a lot of ideas and a certain way of seeing things. He would like to know, would you ever move back to Philadelphia, and does your current place of residence give you the same feelings?
Fortunately, my current residence does not give me the same feeling. But I love Philadelphia. I always say it's a love-hate. When I lived there, it was much different than it is today. I've been back to Philadelphia. Great, great people in Philadelphia. And I like the city of today, but it's more like every other city. When I lived in Philadelphia, it was unique. It was before graffiti. Graffiti has ruined the world. And graffiti, before graffiti, Philadelphia had soot-covered buildings, beautiful, beautiful buildings, row houses, probably a lot like Manchester, really, because it was more like a factory town. And it had a fantastic mood. There was a huge amount of fear in the air. The government there was corrupt. There was insanity. Saw many, many forms of insanity and violence, and there was a certain amount of filth. But it inspired something. I don't know exactly what. I say the biggest influence in my life has been the city of Philadelphia.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have Jacob and Lorna and Steve? Are they here anywhere? Hello. Okay, they've got a couple of questions. They would like to ask, how close to your vision do you get with your art and filmmaking? Are there any of your works which you would say are the purest expression of your artistic intent?
Well, hopefully all of them are, with the exception of Dune. And I did not have final cut, artistic control on The Elephant Man, but bless his heart, Mel Brooks pretty much gave it to me. So, as I said earlier, you work to try to get it to feel correct based on the ideas. And I guess I've been very fortunate to have the opportunity to do that. So, in a way, I'm happy with all the films that I've made, with the exception of Dune.
And Jacob would specifically like to ask, which hair products do you use, as your hair always looks amazing?
I do not use hair products. I don't bathe I don't like to get wet.
That's great. I've got a few in off Twitter. If you found yourself at the helm of a superhero franchise, what would you do with it? Oh, you're here. Yay. Hello. Raoul? Is that you? Yeah.
I would look around the room and to give it quickly to someone else.
And this one says, years ago, you mentioned that if anyone showed interest in your work, you would really glean to them. Is it still true?
Yes.
And somebody wants to ask, this is Michelle Wheatley. One of the many things, oh, you're here, Michelle? Hi, I know you, Michelle. Hi. One of the many things I love about your work is the realism. You depict weird coincidences of events, things that happen in real life, but we seldom see on screen. What, in your opinion, makes a great filmmaker?
A person who finds his or her own voice and is true to the ideas. That to me is a great filmmaker.
Thank you. Marie O'Sullivan, is this person here? Woohoo! Hello, hi Marie. How much has the music of Angelo Badalamenti influenced you since you began working together, and has his music ever changed what you did in a film?
Well, I'm sure we won't have enough time for me to sing Angelo Badalamenti's praises, but Angelo, I love like a brother. He is an incredible musician. What comes out of him is so beautiful, and I feel so fortunate to have met Angelo and been able to work with him. And we have a very special working relationship because I can talk to him in words, and he will sit at the keyboard and translate my words into music. But if I don't like what he plays, then I just have to change my words. So it's so beautiful. Every time we have a session, for me, just extraordinary things come out, and love him to pieces.
Thank you. And also, I believe Krista Bell popped round to see you last weekend.
Yes, she did pop around.
Yay. And she is going to be here in Manchester next weekend, as you know, with some musical friends.
Krista Bell, bless her heart, if she was a little bit better looking, she'd have more success.
And can you tell us a little bit more about your collaboration with Krista Bell and what we can expect when she comes?
I met Krista Bell, I think in 1999. Maybe it was 2000, but I think 1999. She was so young, but she was kind of like an alien to me. She still had this kind of baby fat. And she came in, I kept looking at her. I thought it was an alien, but so beautiful. And out came this voice and way of singing. It was what started the whole thing. And through the years, we'd worked together. And the way we worked, me or Dean or John would have a track already built, and she would soar over this track and provide the melody. And it worked like that till we got enough for an album.
Super. And she is beautiful, mesmerizing, alluring, and I think we've got a real treat for everyone next weekend.
You certainly do.
Another question, Harry Ovington. Do you think there is any creative benefit that comes from living in an environment which you are not fond of? And if there is, how long should you endure it?
Well, many people, unfortunately, are caught up in a situation that's difficult to endure these days, and this is unfortunate. So I think, for me, Philadelphia, I'm glad I went through it, and it was super important for me, but I'm also glad I got out when I did. So hopefully things will change in this world for the good, and the word enduring a bad situation won't come into our talks and thinking.
Thank you. I'm going to invite now the last of my friends here on stage, who is John D. Nash, and he's going to ask you a question.
Fantastic.
Hello, David.
Hello, John.
Oh, this is amazing. I'll just get my fanboy out my system very quickly and just say that you've encouraged me to meditate and inspired me to create art more than any individual on the planet, and they're two of the greatest gifts I could hope to receive, so thank you. So my question, what I'm intrigued to know is, what was it about Sparky the dog that made him the love of your life?
If you had met Sparky, chances are he would have become the love of your life.
I had Kipper. He was a Lancashire terrier, black and tan terrier. So I feel like I know the same thing, because he was by far the most popular member of our family.
Yeah, anybody who's had a Jack Russell Terrier knows what I'm talking about. They're just packed with love, packed with energy and love. Just amazing. And Sparky liked to bite water. And so in Blue Velvet, the dog biting the water coming out of the hose, the garden hose, that was dear Sparky. Loved to bite water. Also liked fruit, particularly pears and oranges.
Wow. That's a cool dog. Thank you very much. Just one quick cheeky question while I'm here. It's the last question. What are you working on presently, and what have you been working on recently, creative-wise?
I am working on a lamp. I believe in the show you have an example of the matchstick lamp.
I know it, yes. Lovely.
Yes, so I'm working on another one of those right now.
Okay. I think for the lamps in the Manchester, you missed a trick. You should have put a small room around your lamps with some artworks, which are very poorly illuminated. And if people complain, you just go speak to the lighting guy. He made the lamps. So, take care. It was lovely to meet you, David.
Good to meet you, John.
Okay, so David, that is kind of all of our questions. So, we really enjoyed spending time hanging out with you, and thank you so much for all the work that you've brought to us. I just wondered if you had any kind of, parting words of advice to the audience here in Manchester. How should they, advertise, savor your artwork whilst it's here?
Well, I don't know how, artwork strikes everyone a little differently, so, but I thank them all for coming to the show. Thank you again, Sarah, for and all your team for the show. And I think the people of Manchester, you've got an incredible history, and you should really, appreciate that great factory, history that's there, and keep that alive. It's a fantastic world there, and so the whole factory thing that I can imagine in Manchester is alive in my head. So in a sense, I'm there with you, and and I appreciate being with all of you tonight.
Thank you.
All the best. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Okay. I just want to say a couple of thank yous, if I may. Just want to say thank you to my co-curator, Omar Khalif, and to the wider, fabulous curatorial team, everybody that's helped me. Mary Ann, Katie, Jason, Bren. Thank you, Home, and thank you, Manchester International Festival. Thank you to Deirdre and the David Lynch Foundation UK, and also LifeShare here in Manchester. Thanks a lot to David's dream team of Michael, Sabrina, and Anna, who've been amazing throughout this process. Thank you, the audience, and everybody who sent a question. And thanks to those who joined me on stage. And as you know, you all have to buy me a drink in the bar afterwards, as promised. And thank you beyond words to our artist, David Lynch. And I'd just like to finish with the words of the Log Lady, which I read as a message of hope. One day, the sadness will end. Thank you, and good night.